Have you ever felt like there's something inside you that's been quietly waiting, not screaming for attention, but simply burning steadily, patiently? There's a power within you. It's not loud, it doesn't need to be. It's more like a fire that never goes out. Sure, it may flicker during tough times, it might dim when you're exhausted, but it never fully disappears. It's always there waiting for a spark. And sometimes, that spark comes unexpectedly. It could be a challenge you didn't see coming, a moment of truth that shakes you awake, a quiet realization that the life you're living isn't aligned with who you truly are. In that moment, you don't discover something new. You remember something ancient, something that was always there. You might think you've already seen the full range of your potential, that you know the limits of your strength. But the truth is, most of us are only scratching the surface. Beneath your daily routine, behind all the noise of self-doubt and overthinking, there's an ocean of untapped force. And that fire inside? It's the key. I know this because I've felt it myself. During the lowest seasons of my life, when I thought I was finished, when I felt invisible, that fire showed up. Not as a dramatic burst of motivation, but as a whisper, "You're not done yet." Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's not just a quote, it's a compass. Because in a world constantly pulling our attention outward, Stoic wisdom reminds us that real strength isn't found in applause or approval. It's found in the quiet choice to keep going. So let me ask you, what if that challenge you're facing right now isn't here to break you? What if it's here to awaken you? Stay with me, because today's message might just be the spark that reignites everything inside you. Most people live within the boundaries of what they've already been through. We define ourselves by past wins, or worse, by past wounds. But here's something no one tells you. Your potential was never defined by your experiences. It's not something the past can measure, because it lives in the part of you the past hasn't even touched yet. Think about it. Every hardship you faced, every setback you've endured, those weren't walls. They were just fog. Temporary. Thick, yes. Confusing, absolutely. But never permanent. Beneath that fog is a vast ocean of untapped capability. And most of us have only sailed near the shore. Why do we wait until we're forced to change before we access that part of ourselves? Why does pain often have to be the invitation? Maybe because comfort whispers, but difficulty demands. When life gets hard, it's not trying to crush you. Sometimes it's trying to call out what's been buried: your grit, your clarity, your purpose. You don't need more time, or more talent, or someone's permission. You need to stop assuming your best has already happened. Because the truth is, your best hasn't even been asked for yet. The Stoics believed that every difficulty is an opportunity not for success, but for strength. Marcus Aurelius didn't say, "Avoid adversity." He said, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Every obstacle is secretly offering you access to a deeper version of yourself. One that isn't built in comfort, but revealed in resistance. So if you're doubting yourself right now, remember this. Your potential is not buried in the past. It's waiting in your response to this moment. And you right now are the only one who can unlock it. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, where did my limits come from? Are they truly mine? Or were they handed to me? Maybe someone once told you, you're not cut out for that. Maybe society subtly suggested you're too old, too quiet, too different. Maybe you failed once and mistook that failure as a definition of who you are. The truth is, many of the limits we live by were never chosen, they were inherited. From culture, from family, from fear disguised as advice. We didn't build these walls. We just got used to living inside them. But here's a question to sit with. What would happen if you stopped believing in those limits? What if you challenged every assumption about what you're allowed to do, who you're supposed to be? The Stoics taught us to question what we assume is true, especially about ourselves. Epictetus reminded us that it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions of them. And that includes the opinions we hold about our own worth, potential, and capacity. Think of a bird raised in a cage. Even when the door opens, it may not fly, not because it can't, but because it's forgotten that it can. Sometimes, our greatest growth doesn't require a new opportunity. It requires the courage to unlearn what we thought was truth. So today, I challenge you. Pick one belief about yourself that limits you. Ask, who gave this to me? And then ask, what if it's not true? That's how freedom begins. Not by changing the world around you, but by changing what you believe is possible within you. Because once your mind is free, your life will follow. Most people think strength looks loud, assertive, dominant, something that fills a room and silences others. But Marcus Aurelius, a man who led an empire, believed something radically different. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Let that sink in. Your greatest battlefield isn't out there in the chaos of the world. It's in here, your mind. Think about it. Storms will always come. People will criticize. Plans will fall apart. Life will test you in ways you can't prepare for. But your response? That's yours. That's your sacred ground. So the next time you feel overwhelmed when someone cuts you off in traffic, when your plans collapse, or when a conversation spirals into conflict, ask yourself this: where is my control? You'll find the answer isn't in changing the event or convincing the other person. It's in holding your inner stillness like a mountain holds its ground. This isn't weakness, it's wisdom. In a world obsessed with reaction, silence can be revolutionary. Composure can be your protest. Clarity can be your rebellion. And no, it's not easy. But neither is being tossed around by every mood, every comment, every little change in the weather of life. That's exhausting. What Marcus reminds us is simple but profound. Your mind is your kingdom. Guard it. Train it. Live from it. Not just through it. Because real power doesn't need to raise its voice. It doesn't need to win every argument. It just needs to remain centered, even when the world pulls in every direction. There's a quiet lie many of us carry, the belief that we're not strong enough. But here's the truth. You are not weak. You've simply forgotten what you've already survived. Think about it. How many moments have you walked through that, at the time, felt impossible? How many nights did you think would break you? Yet, you're still here. The doubt you feel today often doesn't come from who you are, it comes from what you've disconnected from. You've lost touch with that inner fire, the one that burned through your darkest hours. It's still there, just buried beneath layers of fear, exhaustion, and the noise of the world telling you to be more, do more, or prove yourself. But you don't need to prove anything. What you need is to remember. Remember the version of you that kept going when everything fell apart? The part of you that didn't give up when no one was watching? The resilience that lives in your silence, in the quiet decisions you made to rise instead of retreat. Doubt thrives when you forget who you are. So take a moment to reconnect. You are not your hesitation. You are not your current struggle. You are every battle you've already won and the wisdom that came with it. The Stoics taught us not to run from discomfort, but to use it, to let it show us what we're made of. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." Your strength isn't measured by the absence of doubt, but by your refusal to let doubt define you. So the next time your confidence shakes, don't ask, "Am I strong enough?" Instead ask, "When was the last time I forgot that I already am?" From a young age, many of us were taught to doubt ourselves before we even had the chance to believe. Not directly, but subtly. Through the sideways glances when we spoke too boldly. Through the silence after we expressed what we truly felt. Little by little, we learned to second guess, to hold back, to become fluent in hesitation. It became a second language, one of caution, of smallness, of fear. But here's the thing. Beneath all that conditioning, your true voice never left. That steady, unshaken core, the voice that knows who you are and what you stand for, it's still there, waiting. Not demanding to be heard with noise or anger, but waiting patiently for you to get quiet enough to listen. Have you ever had a moment where something inside you just knew? A choice that felt true before it made logical sense? That's not just instinct. That's the part of you that hasn't forgotten. The part untouched by fear or conformity. The voice that says, "This is who I am, and this is the life I want to live." The Stoics believed that wisdom doesn't shout, it whispers. And we can only hear it when we silence the external noise and the internal chatter of doubt. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." So if you keep telling yourself to be quiet, to shrink, to fit in, you begin to forget the sound of your own truth. But you can unlearn that. You can choose today to stop speaking the language of fear. You can pause, listen inward, and let that original voice rise again. You don't need to find it, you just need to return to it. Here's something we often forget. Confidence doesn't strike like lightning. It doesn't come from applause, validation, or some breakthrough moment. True belief in yourself is quietly built, choice by choice, habit by habit. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, presence over avoidance, courage over comfort, you are laying down the bricks of trust in yourself. It doesn't feel dramatic. In fact, it usually feels mundane. Like saying no to that impulse. Like showing up when no one's watching. Like doing the hard thing without announcing it. We live in a world that celebrates the visible transformation. The 6-month before and after photos. The "I quit my job and moved across the world" stories. But the truth? The real change happens silently. It happens in the daily decisions no one else sees. The repetitions that feel small, but stack up like compound interest. That's what the Stoics understood. Marcus Aurelius didn't become wise because of one grand moment of enlightenment. He trained his mind through daily self-examination. Epictetus taught that freedom doesn't come from changing the world, but from mastering yourself day after day. So, if you're waiting to feel ready, don't. Start. Pick one small thing and repeat it. And then again tomorrow. Because transformation isn't an explosion. It's a rhythm, a pulse, a quiet evolution built on intentional action. Confidence, then, is not a gift, it's a byproduct of showing up for yourself, especially when no one else is looking. Let's be honest though, often do we fall into the trap of comparison. You're scrolling through your feed, and there it is. Someone's perfect morning routine, their sculpted body, their dream job in a sunlit city. It looks effortless. And suddenly, your own life feels less. But here's the thing. What you're comparing your reality to is someone else's highlight reel. It's edited, curated, filtered for applause. And when you measure your behind the scenes against someone's public performance, pain is inevitable. The Stoics understood this long before social media existed. Epictetus taught that peace comes not from having more, but from wanting less, especially from others. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, don't waste time worrying about what others are doing. Focus on your own role, your own choices. Because true happiness doesn't come from measuring up, it comes from looking inward and living in alignment with who you are, not who the world says you should be. When you stop comparing, you start connecting to yourself, to what really matters. So next time that envy creeps in, pause, breathe, remind yourself. Your journey is real, and that's what makes it powerful. Here's a quiet truth that many never realize. Real strength doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't seek applause, nor does it crave acknowledgement. In fact, the most powerful people I've met aren't the loudest in the room. They're often the ones who move in silence, with intention. We live in a world obsessed with display metrics, likes, validation. But Stoic wisdom flips that on its head. It says, you don't need others to recognize your power for it to be real. It's not about what the world sees, it's about what you build when no one is watching. Think about it, those early mornings you show up, the hard choices you make alone, the small daily disciplines you repeat, even when no one is cheering. That's strength. Not the dramatic, performative kind, but the kind that lasts. The kind that transforms you from the inside out. So if you're in a season where no one sees your effort, keep going. Your quiet persistence is not weakness. It's the purest form of power. When people hear the word discipline, they often think of restriction, control, or even punishment. But what if discipline wasn't a cage, but a form of love? Think about it, discipline is waking up early to give your future self peace. It's choosing to say no to distractions, not because you're being harsh, but because you're being kind to your goals. Discipline is the structure you build when the world outside feels like it's falling apart. It's your inner anchor when everything else is chaos. You don't stay consistent because it's easy. You stay consistent because you care. Because you know that showing up for yourself every day, even in small ways, is one of the most powerful acts of self-respect. So the next time you stick to your plan, even when it's tough, remember, that's not punishment. That's love. Quiet, steady, and unshakable. That's the kind of love the Stoics understood, rooted not in emotion, but in action. Have you ever waited to feel ready before starting something important? We all have. We think confidence will come first, then action will follow. But the truth is, it's the other way around. The people you admire, the ones who seem fearless or incredibly sure of themselves, they didn't start that way. Most of them began with doubt, hesitation, even fear in their gut. But what separates them from the rest is this: they acted anyway. Action creates clarity. The moment you step forward, even if your voice shakes, something inside you shifts. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's movement in spite of it. So don't wait for the perfect moment. It rarely comes. Start before you feel ready. Trust that readiness will catch up to you once you're already moving. The Stoics would say, don't ask for things to be easy, ask to be stronger. And strength? It's built step by step. Not in stillness, but in motion. You don't need to raise your voice to prove your worth. In a world obsessed with being seen and heard, there's something quietly powerful about the person who doesn't chase attention, who doesn't need applause to feel enough. Real strength shows itself in calm presence. It's the way someone walks into a room and doesn't demand attention, yet you feel it's something solid, something grounded. That's not noise. That's clarity. That's someone who knows what matters to them and lives in alignment with it. Have you ever met someone like that? They speak less, but their actions echo louder. They're not in a rush to convince others because they've already convinced themselves. Living with quiet conviction, being anchored in what you believe, even when no one's watching. That's what real value looks like. Stoic wisdom teaches us this: external validation is fleeting, but inner integrity is eternal. So maybe today, the most powerful thing you can do is simply to be calm, clear, unshaken. Clear, unshaken. You are not behind. You're becoming. And the path you're on? It may not be loud, fast, or full of praise, but it is real. Every quiet effort, every small decision to keep going, every time you choose integrity over approval, it all adds up. Growth doesn't always look like a breakthrough sometimes. It's just choosing not to give up when no one is watching. We often think success is a race, and if we're not ahead, we must be falling behind. But becoming who you're meant to be isn't a sprint, it's a slow unfolding. Like seasons shifting, like roots deepening underground. You can't always see progress, but that doesn't mean it isn't happening. So, if today felt ordinary, if progress felt invisible, trust this: the future version of you is being shaped right now. Quietly, steadily, profoundly. And one day, you'll look back and realize you weren't falling behind. you were becoming everything you needed to be.